Welcome to the second video series on the internal family system. In this video series, we're going to focus on IFS, or the internal family system, as a therapeutic approach. Now, all the videos I'm going to be creating are based on the first series I recorded, the Introduction to IFS Theory, in which I've introduced all of this and I've introduced the basic concepts, understandings, etc. that in the internal family system is built on. If you haven't watched those, please watch them, because all of these videos will make a whole lot more sense if you've seen them. But in this second video series, we're really going to dive into the practical, into the questions of what does IFS do as a therapy, as a practice, how does it do it, what are the basic understandings, so you can really get a good overview of IFS as a therapeutic approach, but also how it can be used in coaching, in your personal growth, etc., because it's the same principles in all of these places. So that's what this video series is about. And in this first video of the IFS, or Internal Family Systems Therapy video series, I want to talk about the goals of IFS therapy. Don't worry, we'll get back to that drawing. And I want to present those goals to you backwards. We're going to start with goal number 5 and work our way backwards. And the reason why I want to present these goals backwards to you is that I want to kind of open the field by thinking about how do we want somebody to be after they've worked using the IFS model, and then work backwards to understand why the steps that IFS uses are the way they are. And to set the stage for that, I want to kind of open this as a thought experiment. So imagine a client, a patient comes with their problems. In the beginning, they may not even know about parts, etc., but they know they do have problems. So they come with those, and then black box. So meaning we don't really think about what's happening in there yet, but they go through an IFS therapy, IFS coaching, whatever it is, and this goes really, really, really well. Meaning it works, it helps them, they can understand themselves, etc., etc. We're going to figure out what that is. And then the question is, after they've gone through this black box IFS therapy, what's the goal for after that? How do we want people to leave this time, ideally? And that's going to be goal number 5. So we're going to start with that as a first question. How do we want people to leave after having worked with the internal family system? And the main goal for that, I would say, is we hope people can leave with self-leadership and balance in their system, meaning that after they've worked with this model, their self, their spiritual core, is more in leadership in their system, the parts are more aligned, and exiles, old pain has been unburdened, but also integrated. So in this state of self-leadership, there is less polarization and charge between the different parts. Exiles have been unburdened and integrated. Sometimes we can't unburden every single exile, but they can be more integrated into the system, which also reduces charge. The parts are aligned towards our higher goal, our self-led and self-chosen goals. Self can be the leader and negotiator in that system, meaning if there are problems, if there are challenges, the self can deal with them themselves. That also means somebody who has a higher degree of self-leadership doesn't need as much therapy or support as somebody who has very low self-leadership. And individually, it will mean somebody will have dealt with some of the challenges that are specific to them. Different people have different challenges. For some people, their parts are overly nice, others are overly confrontational. They have specific situations in their relationships, in their work life, all of that will need individual attention, and that is also included in the self-leadership, meaning some of the specific challenges that used to create a lot of charge have been worked with. That's the overall orientation of self-leadership, and that's what we hope somebody has more of. Nobody will ever have perfect self-leadership, but more of after they've worked using the internal family system approach. So going back to this visual, goal number 5 is self-leadership. And for the rest of this video, I want to now move backwards step by step by step and always ask the question, so what has to happen before somebody can have more self-leadership? And for somebody to have more self-leadership, the main thing that needs to happen is for more self to be able to be present, which means the parts have to step aside a bit, trust, relax, which most of all means something has to change with the protectors. So in order for somebody to have more self-leadership in their life, protectors need to release some of their extreme roles. That doesn't mean they have to completely stop what they're doing, but they have to offer more space and let go of some of their extreme roles. So in some different terminology, this can mean that protectors have to relax a little bit and give space, meaning they have to become aware that there's someone else, something else, self, that they can trust so that they can relax and give space. They need to, for that, build the trust with the self. Protectors that really do their job because they think they have to will only step aside if there is enough trust in somebody else, something else taking care of that. Sometimes specific protectors really need to be unburdened before that because they are so tied to their role and they don't think they can let go of it, so that they need help actually letting go of their extreme behavior. And then when they've done that, they can reclaim healthy capacities. And once they have healthy capacities, it's much easier to align them with self and self-energy. So in order to have more self-leadership, first the protectors need to release their roles or at least relax a little bit. That's the step directly before that. And now the next question is, what needs to happen so that protectors can release their roles and relax a little bit? And this brings us back to the point that protectors are doing their job, fulfilling their roles because they have to, or at least they think they have to, because of the charge and burden that exiles are carrying. So that means in order for protectors to really let go of their roles and to relax substantially and long term, we need to help exiles. So we need to unburden, heal, or integrate exiles more. In this drawing, this is my visualization of an exile reclaiming its original qualities, where before there was the burden, the band-aid. And when exiles are unburdened, sometimes completely, sometimes a little bit, sometimes it can only be that the exile is held differently by self-energy. It might hold on to its burden, but just the holding through self-energy changes the dynamic. And all of these will reduce the vulnerability of the exile and thus of the whole system. The less charge, the less burden and pain is held by the exiles, the more free and freely the system can move. To reduce vulnerability, we often need to release burdens to some degree. Again, not always fully, but for exiles to be able to let go of their burdens, thus recovering the positive qualities they once had. This can be reclaiming and re-owning needs that were split off and lost. This can mean reclaiming self qualities that the exiles were carrying, or just in general these aspects of this is how somebody was meant to be. This was the natural way to be in the world for somebody. And through all of that, we can have the exiles more integrated in the system. Maybe then not even as exiles anymore, maybe still with some burden. That's what in the self-leadership drawing is, this exile being integrated more into the system. So all of those are steps that are part of unburdening exiles, or exiles releasing their burden, their pain. So going back to the drawing, we want somebody to leave with more self-leadership. For that, protectors have to release their roles or relax. So that for that, exiles need to release some of their burdens so that there is less vulnerability, that the protectors realize that they don't have to do their job as intensely anymore. And now the next question is, what has to happen before exiles can be unburdened? And the very simple and potentially simplistic answer to the question of what needs to happen before exiles can be unburdened is we need to find and connect with or to the exiles. A lot of times we are unaware of the parts in us that are carrying pain, to the young, vulnerable parts that are also in our system. A lot of people are very aware of their protectors, they're doing a lot of things, but when it comes to the exiles and their exact burdens, we don't know them a lot of times. So before we can help them, we need to find connection with them. And this entails a few different things. Number one, it entails enough self-energy. Really being with exiles, we need the self-energy because these exiles need to be witnessed. They often really need to feel the care, the compassion, etc. that comes with self, which is a lot more difficult, if not impossible, if we are not connected to that and just in parts. The second thing is to find and connect exiles, protectors need to allow that. There might be some protectors in this visual here, this one, that are too worried about us connecting with an exile. And if that's the case, it won't work and it won't be sustainable. So the protectors need to allow us connecting to the exiles. And then when we've done that, we really need to start off by witnessing and understanding the exiles. Exiles have a need to be seen, a need to be heard. They've often been split off from awareness, that's that line here, for so long that they need somebody, and fortunately self is perfectly equipped to do that, to hear, see, and understand it. So those are the steps before we can unburden exiles, before we can help them. We first need to find them and connect with them, and often this witnessing and the amount of self-energy shared in that can be so important already for the healing and the changing of exiles. So, going back to the drawing, we hope somebody who's worked with internal family system will leave with more self-leadership. For that, protectors need to relax, release their roles. For that, we need to reduce vulnerability in the system, so we need to help unburdening exiles. For that, we need to find those exiles, connect with them, and have the okay from the protectors. And now the question is, what needs to happen before that? And what needs to happen before we can connect with and find exiles is building trust between self and protectors. Almost all the time, the first parts that we meet are protectors. Most of our life is guided by healthy parts or protectors. So the first thing that needs to happen as we work with this model, with ourselves or with others, is to build a trusting foundation between self and the protectors. This means with whatever problem, wish, hope somebody's coming, finding the protectors that are involved in that, focusing on them, giving them attention, learning more about them. But it also means then unblending from them so that self can be present. If self is present, sharing self-energy, if there is compassion, curiosity, showing that to the protectors, and thus building a trusting relationship where we can have an interaction. And sometimes this might mean making protectors aware that there is such a thing as the self, that there is a healthy adult that can actually help. So this work that I find in the courses I'm leading, but also in sessions I'm doing with people underestimate and want to get over quickly, and sometimes as quickly as possible, to get to the exiles. This step is so essential, because without building this trust, number one, the whole system doesn't have the faith in the therapist, the coach, but also the self. We need to make sure that self is present. We need to make sure that the protectors are aware of that so that they can trust that force. And then from there, it is almost natural to realize that, wow, when there is trust between self and protectors, they will often show the exiles, or when they are asked, they will allow that there is a connection between self and that. They will allow that we can help those exiles. When we've helped those exiles, they are happy to change their behavior and let go of certain aspects of their role or their role completely. And they, through that, develop the trust that self can help and lead the system. So actually, all of these steps build on top of each other. And in one way, even though we started from the back and moved backwards, this is the IFS therapy process or therapy approach. In a nutshell, we learn about and build trust with the protectors. We find exiles. We help the exiles. We help the protectors letting go of their roles and also their burdens. And through that, over time and overall, we increase self-leadership. This is also, speaking forward, the IFS approach to healing. And it is exactly this approach and these steps that I want to focus on over the next few videos. I want to really start with this, but then get into more details too of the exact steps, maybe some of the questions and examples of how this can look, so that you can have an overview of what the IFS process, the IFS approach might entail. And that's already the end for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If this is helpful for you, please share it with others who might also benefit from this, and see you in the next video.
You never know what's around the next corner.